Hi, my name is Gary Bloom. I've been a CASA advocate for a couple of years now, and have now worked with two young men in my role. My background is as an educator, a bilingual educator, and I've been in the community for quite a while. And CASA has been a way for me to give back and to stay engaged with the community. Um, I'm going to talk a bit today about Frank, obviously not his real name. His story is amazing, compelling. I first met him a little over a year ago. He came to this country at the age of 15 from a rural village in Mexico, a very rural environment where he was living with his grandparents. His parents had both emigrated to the States when he was still an infant, so he really didn't even know his parents, and they subsequently split up. He was raised by his grandparents in his rural village, which is a Mixteco speaking village. Spanish was not his first language. An indigenous language was his first language in this indigenous community. And when his grandfather died, there was no way for his family to for his grandmother to sustain him. So he came up here at the age of 15 by himself through Tijuana, speaking some Spanish because public schools in his village do teach in Spanish, but really not even being a dominant Spanish speaker, let alone speaking any English. Got to the border in Tijuana and was arrested and thrown back over the border twice by himself at the age of 15. The third time he was taken into custody and taken to a detention facility in Arizona by himself at the age of 15. And ultimately the authorities there were able to track down his parents here in the States. His father lives in Alabama with a new family, and his mother lives in Watsonville with a new family, and he was sent here. He got into a dispute with his mother in Watsonville a few months after he'd arrived here, and she called law enforcement, and he was taken out of the home and placed into foster care, which is when CASA contacted me and asked me if I'd be willing to work with him, even though I already had another kid I was working with, but it seemed to be that he needed support in a hurry and he needed somebody Spanish speaking, and that's how I met Frank. And well, the first thing that blew me away about this young man was his resilience. The things that he'd been through in his young life were kind of overwhelming. But he was confident and smart and able to take care of himself. He was in a pretty good foster placement. He was very, very proud of his village. One of the very first things he did was show me those YouTube videos. I think you've got a clip that you may show the group of what life was like in his village. He was enrolled at Watsonville High School, having a hard time, even though there's a lot of support at Watsonville High. His education only extended through 5th grade. He was placed at the high school as a freshman. In the pre-COVID days, we were able to do things together. I took him down to the beach. He'd never been to the beach before, and he really wanted to make sure I took a picture of him he could send to his friends and family back in Durango to prove he'd been to the beach. We went and walked in the Forest of Nicene Marks where you could see redwoods, and it was really important for him to be out there in the world. As COVID hit and as the world narrowed down, he wasn't able to have contact with peers. School shut down. It was virtual. He was not really tech savvy, nor was his resource mom. And his world got narrower and narrower. It was very difficult for him. He was sleeping a lot. He was disengaged, watching a lot of TV and playing a lot of video games. Like many kids, I think currently, it was really, really difficult situation, particularly for kids in foster care who are so isolated, who can maybe so darned isolated. He loves music, and he talked about how he had taken trumpet lessons back in his village in Mexico, where traditional music, band music, is really important. Um, I said, he asked me if I could try to get him a trumpet. And I had connections through Senderos, which is a wonderful community organization here in Santa Cruz County that works with the Latino community, and was able to line up some trumpet lessons for him, and was able to work with the CASA Community Children's Fund to get him a brand new trumpet, which he received with great joy, and continues to play with. The ongoing lessons were a little bit problematic because of coordinating things and doing things online, unfortunately, but he values that trumpet, and it's been an important source of solace and connection for him in his little room in a dark apartment complex, by himself, trying to keep up with things like chemistry with a 5th grade education, as a high school sophomore at Watsonville High in the era of COVID. So the generosity of the Children's Fund, the support that CASA has been able to provide him has been essential. It's pleasing to me to be able to work with Frank, because I do think, even though our one-on-one relationship has been really challenged by the separation forced by COVID, I think I've been able to provide some support for him through advocacy with the schools, the school district, with the court, and with his immigration status, which is still up in the air. His single highest aspiration at this point is to be able to work legally so he can send money back to Mexico to his grandmother. And that's what we're working on now, is getting his residency squared away, and making it legal for him to work, as well as succeeding in school. So I thank CASA on his behalf, and thank the Children's Fund for getting a trumpet. I was able also to secure a bicycle for him so he can get around town. I think CASA has been a real asset for Frank in these really difficult circumstances.